Hi. Tonight I want to talk to you about distilling liquor. To start distilling any kind of liquor, the first thing you need to do is come up with a wash. To do that, you need to create something that's got alcohol in it that you're going to run through your still to turn into moonshine or liquor. Basically, what you need to do to make alcohol is have something with sugar in it, add yeast, and let it ferment. Depending on what you use as your sugar content and the way you prepare it after that, it's going to turn it into either wine or beer, or in this case, booze. What I have sitting here in front of me is what I call a wash. It's just simply 1 gallon of wash. And a little later I'm going to take you downstairs. We're going to run this through the still, and I'll show you how we're going to take this mess here and turn it into some fine shine. So let's talk a little bit about the yeast. Everything I'm using here tonight is just basic household ingredients. So I have a basic bread yeast. This is instant dry yeast, quick rise and instant dry yeast. If you could get yourself a turbo yeast or a wine yeast, it would be much better. You'll get a little bit more of an alcohol content out of that. But I'm using things I had sitting around. We're going to take this and we're going to turn this into a cherry shine. Some people call it redneck Kool-Aid. What I did here is very basic, and I just want to say, most people think of moonshine, they think of it as corn, made out of corn. You definitely can, and lots of people like the taste. Personally, I like a good corn shine myself, but you don't necessarily have to. This is really, really simple, and I'm telling you, it's going to be really, really good. What I did is I just took a gallon of water, and I added 6 cups of sugar, regular table sugar you buy in the store to it. I heated that up and dissolved the sugar into it. I then poured it into this vessel and I let it cool down to room temperature. This is really important. You don't want to pitch your yeast while this is hot, or it's going to kill your yeast and it's going to just be a mess. Let's talk a little bit more about the yeast. What yeast does is it eats sugar, it pisses out alcohol, and it farts CO2. That's the way I look at it. I know that's crude, but that's the way I have it in my head. And I feel if you know that much, you can make yourself some alcohol. Making it taste good, that takes a little practice, or you followed some people's recipes. But if you remember that about your yeast, you're pretty good to go. So once I have my simple syrup in here, I wanted to activate this yeast. I always find it better. You can simply, if this is at room temperature, you could just pitch the yeast on there and it will work. It just takes a little bit longer for it to get started bubbling away, and I wanted to make sure that I had good yeast, nice and healthy. So what I do is I take a cup of water, you make it the temperature of about what you would make a baby's bath. A little bit above room temperature, but not hot. You don't want to make it too hot and kill your yeast. So I take that cup of water and I put a tablespoon of sugar in there just to give the yeast a little bit something to get it going. I used a half a package of this. Pitch it in there, stir it around with a spoon, and let it sit for 15 minutes to half an hour. And you're going to see a big foam growing on the top of it. That means your yeast is working. Once it all looks good and healthy, add that to your mix. You're going to notice that this is a red color. That's because I added a little bit of cherry Kool-Aid into there, just to give it the color and a little bit of flavor. And I don't know if you can see in the camera, but you'll see there's this stuff floating around on the top here. This happens to be, it's a small can of fruit cocktail mix. I was hoping to get cherries, but at the time I couldn't find any in the store. So I grabbed myself a little can of fruit cocktail mix and I threw that in there too. Reason for the fruit cocktail mix, you could use raisins or you could use dried fruit or But you want to have something, again, to feed your yeast, keep your yeast healthy. You could do it without it, but I find it's much, much better. You get a high alcohol content out of there, and you run your yeast until all the alcohol or all the sugar is eaten up and turned into alcohol. This container here is just a 1 gallon iced tea jug. And what I did is I drilled a hole in the top and I put an airlock on here. This is very important. You don't want to make this mixture up, this bath, or the wash, sorry. Make this up and seal the top and leave it, because it's going to explode on you. That's what I said, the part about the farting the CO2. Don't do that. Not a good thing. You cover this, leave it closed tight with no airlock, and it's going to explode. Kind of like when you pop a bottle of champagne, but champagne's already, that yeast has done a lot of work eating up the sugar prior to it ever being put in the bottle. So don't do that. Also the airlock. So the airlock gives the CO2 a way to escape, and this airlock's filled with water, so it keeps any contaminants from getting in there and messing up your wash. I think that's about all I need to say at this point. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to run this. This is totally dead. When you do this, after you make your mixture, this is going to start bubbling. And that means your yeast is working. It's eating up that sugar. After it slows down really big, usually in about a week or two, or in this case it's totally dead, it's eating up every bit of sugar I'm going to get out of this has been turned into alcohol. I'm going to pour this out through a cheesecloth to get rid of this fruit cocktail, and the rest is going to go into my little 1 gallon still downstairs, and I'm going to show you how we're going to distill this and turn this into some fine shine. So let's do that. Let's head downstairs and I'll show you how we make some shine. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my still. Today we're going to be using this little tiny 1 gallon still here. This is the first still I ever built, and I simply made it out of a pressure cooker, a 1 gallon pressure cooker. I drilled a couple holes in the top. I put a fitting on here so I could hook up my condenser, and most importantly, I put a thermometer. Water boils at 212 degrees. Alcohol boils about 180, 190 degrees. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to fill this up with our wash from upstairs, and we're going to slowly heat it. I just use a regular hot plate, electric hot plate to heat this. We're going to heat it up to about 185, 190 degrees and keep it at that temperature. With this closed, coming out of here at about 185 degrees, we're going to start getting steam. That's our alcohol burning off. That steam we're going to run through this condenser. To build this, I simply took some copper tubing. I used 1/4-inch tubing. Should have went with 3/8. This is a little too small because what happens, if I make this bucket too cold, it will actually freeze. So I really should have went with 3/8, but it was the first time I did it. And it works as long as I know not to put the ice in here too soon and make it too cold. Once this gets flowing, this will get super hot, then I can start adding my ice. The ice is to bring this down, bring the steam down and turn it back into liquid. And as we do that, it'll flow out, come through this tube, and what we'll have is some moonshine coming out of here. So let me go upstairs, get the wash, and I'll show you how we're going to do it. Okay, here we are, ready to make some shine. The still's all set up. I put the wash in there. I've got it heated up to about 190 degrees right now, and it's flowing. I got it running through the condenser. So basically what's happening right now is the alcohol is turning into steam. It's going through that little 1/4-inch tube into my condenser, which is nothing more than a coffee can wrapped
wrapped around with tubing in a bucket that I fill with ice. Do not use 1/4 inch. If you're going to do this yourself, use 3/8. 1/4 inch is a little too small. It gives me all kinds of grief. But I don't know if you can see. Let me come in over here and try zooming in a little bit. But you can see out there is coming alcohol. Now the very first part of this is going to be acetone. You do not want to drink that. You do not want to mix that in with your shine. That's a bad thing. Got a lot of stuff to do here. I want to get rid of that, and it's going to start flowing much better. I got to add some ice to that condenser, and I'll show you in a little bit how it's flowing and the final product. Okay, sorry I had to cut the last clip a little short, but in the very beginning, you know, it's a matter of getting that acetone out of there and seeing what you got going and tending to the condenser, adding ice and whatnot. But now, I don't know if you can see, but I got a nice steady flow coming out, and we're making some fine shine here. I gave it a little taste. It's going to be a fantastic product. The only thing I wanted to say is I'm going to keep an eye on this. This is flowing good now. So basically my work is done. Add a little ice every once in a while to the condenser, and that's it. Let it flow. But what you'll notice is at some point your temperature, and I have the temperature steady around 190 right now, you're going to notice that creeping up. And at that time, and what I also do is I keep mixing. I'll have 2 different mason jars there, and I keep mixing from one to the other. And every once in a while I give it a little taste test, just make sure it still tastes like booze. But what you're going to notice is at some point the temperature is going to start to rise, and that's when you're getting into what they call the tailings. That's it's basically when the water starts boiling off. You boil off all your alcohol, and you're starting to get water in there. What I'll do at that then is I'll finish up my mix, and I'll take those tailings, let it run out, and I'll use them. The next time I make some shine, I'll mix them in. Still has alcohol, but it's not going to have anywhere near the proof, and if you run it through with your regular shine, you're going to be weakening your shine. Okay? In a little bit, I'm going to get to this, and in a little bit, I'll show you the finished product.
Okay, well, we're all done with the distilling. I got myself about 1.5 pints, maybe a little bit better than that out of this today. And that's not bad. This is some really good stuff. It's a shame that the government only allows me to make it for fuel purposes. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the video today, and stick around on this channel. We're going to have a lot of fun here. I'm going to show you a bunch of different things. We'll probably revisit this distilling in future episodes. I'll show you a couple different ways. Maybe we'll get the big still out and show you better ways to do it. But I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you soon.